Hello and welcome to the second episode of Digital Ramblings. This series is, in case you don't know, just because it's brand new, is me just talking off the cuff about a certain subject. And today's subject is going to be Super Mario Run / freemium games versus paid games. Alright, so Super Mario Run came out at the beginning of this year, but only on iOS. There was an exclusivity clause that Nintendo and Apple had penned where they would have exclusive rights to the game for 3 months before it came out on Android. In April, we finally saw it on Android. Now, a little backstory about this game. For the year or two before this game had come out, people had been rumor mongering and talking about Nintendo coming out with mobile games finally, and this was the time when Nintendo didn't have the Switch out and didn't have all the clout that it finally has found itself in this year. So it looked like Nintendo was really struggling because the Wii U was really struggling at the time. So even investors wanted Nintendo to take a more serious approach to the mobile market. Nintendo, of course, being Nintendo, was a little hesitant about that. So one of the first things that we saw from Nintendo, actually published by Nintendo, was Miitomo. And no, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Shuffle, and those other Pokemon games don't count because they're not published by Nintendo. They're published by the Pokemon Company. And even though Pokemon is part of the Nintendo kingdom, it's kind of like before Pixar was actually bought out by Disney. That means that Nintendo owns part of the Pokemon Company, but they don't own the whole thing. So anyways, back to Super Mario Run. This game, at the time, was extremely hyped up during the keynote at Apple. Everyone was excited to see it because it retained the new Super Mario Bros. Look and feel to the game, which is extremely exciting to see on our mobile devices for the very first time. Except something happened. There was mention, and then finally the game had come out, about a $10 price point. And somehow, that broke people. No one wanted to pay that. I mean, a lot of players did pay for it, but there's still a lot of outcry on the internet, of course, because on the internet everybody complains about everything. And then once someone starts complaining about it, all of a sudden there's this huge chorus of people complaining about the same thing. But what would you rather see? Would you rather see this game be a freemium game? Because we did get a freemium game from Nintendo a couple months later after this game had come out. We got Fire Emblem Heroes, which completely a freemium game. And just like any other freemium game, you're going to hit a time gate and a paywall. For those of you unfamiliar, a time gate is, if you've ever played Clash of Clans, if you've ever played Candy Crush Saga, what that means is you get to a certain level and you can't really continue on until you let the timer count down. So that means in order for you to build a fort or something in Clash of Clans, you have to wait 3 to 4 hours, and then the further you get, you have to wait more and more time. You can mitigate that, of course, by buying whatever currency is in the game. Once you buy that currency, you have the option to speed up the time or completely eliminate the time. That's just a time gate aspect. Candy Crush Saga, for example, there are some levels that are crazy impossible. And as we know, Candy Crush Saga is merely a clone of Bejeweled, but they added a little bit to it. And what they added was timers, and they added difficulty spikes to it. Doing this, a lot of people would be forced to buy items that would help them get to the level, that would clear out like lines of the level in this match 3 game. This made King, the publishers of Candy Crush, a ton of money, like stupid amounts of money. And because of the success of Candy Crush and other games like it, freemium games were definitely the way to go for publishers because they made so much more money off of it. As a matter of fact, if you go into a lot of these stores, you'll see price points as low as 99 cents to price points as high as $100. They will say this is the best value. And basically, they give you everything a little bit more discounted, so they give you more of that game's currency, but at a discounted price. And do people pay for that? They do. So what you're not really paying for a game anymore. You're paying for the experience of that game, which is fine if that's what you're really into. However, Super Mario Run gives you everything up front with no advertising. To me, that's completely worth it because I get all the levels unlocked as soon as I pay that $10. As a matter of fact, Super Mario Run lets you play the game for the first 3 or 4 levels as a demo. So this is harkening back to the old days. And you know, other games have done this as well, where they let you play for free for a little bit, and if you want to unlock the rest of the content, you just pay for it. Or one of my other favorite things is if you want, there are other games where if you want to unlock not really the content, but you want to get rid of advertisements, you just pay like 99 cents to $3 and you get rid of advertisements. And I like doing that because it pays the developers off. See, I'm a big fan of, if I find a good game on mobile, I like to give the developers money. Of course, sometimes advertising actually gives them more revenue than if all the players that played get them like $3 at a time. However, I hate advertisements, and I really hate the freemium model. The Super Mario Run gave me all this up front. There were other games that have done this before, like Implosion, where you got to play the first couple levels for free and then you unlock the rest of the game, which I believe Implosion was about the same price, but that was a fairly complex game and it was way better if you had a controller with it. But there are all kinds of games on Android and iOS that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to just because they're paid for games. It seems like everybody's willing to download a freemium game, but I don't understand the concept of this. Because the problem is that if you hit a paywall or you hit a time gate and you put a little bit of money into it, like $5 to $10, and you stop playing, then you just wasted that money. Or maybe you didn't waste it, because let's say you go to an arcade and you pay some money to play in the arcade. This is the same exact concept. You don't own it, but you paid to play it, which is cool. However, I believe that freemium games sink a ton more time into it. A lot of times in free-to-play games, I gotta stop calling it freemium. In free-to-play games, you set yourself up, you play for like 2 to 3 hours for free, and you get really hooked and addicted to the game. And nothing's more frustrating than hitting that paywall when the game is starting to reach its stride. And that's exactly what they're banking on. They're banking on you hitting that stride, getting into it, and then sinking more money into it. Okay. But back to Super Mario Run. So why is $10 such a big deal? Because there's a good chance that you're going to sink that kind of money. If this was a freemium game, you would have spent $10 probably in the first week, like many players did with Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, players across the world have spent oodles of money on it. They bought Pokeballs, they bought lures, they bought whatever they could. And buying the in-game currency doesn't lengthen the game. However, Super Mario Run has a lot of content for that $10. So the content that you get is multiple worlds with about 4 levels in each. The 4th level culminating in a boss battle. So it's usually going to be on an airship. Well, it's always going to be on an airship or a castle, and you'll fight off against Bowser or one of his Koopalings. Okay, fair enough, but there's a little bit more to the game. So the game has insane replayability value. So you can go back to the different levels that you've already beaten, and you can start collecting the pink coins. Now, after you collect all the pink coins, now you can collect the purple coins. The purple coins then unlock the black coins. So you go through the different levels, but on top of that, sometimes when you pick up these purple or black coins, when you're playing under that level, trying to complete this mission, the level changes a little bit. Then on top of that, there's a kingdom builder. So the kingdom builder is kind of a simulation kind of thing where you can just build parts of the kingdom out, and then you can expand it. And then there's Toad Rally, which is the multiplayer aspect of it, where you play against players around the world to try to beat their times on individual levels. Now, as you see here, I'm playing with Yoshi. So, as I talked about with the coins earlier, getting the coins is so much easier when you unlock a character like Yoshi, because you see right there, he actually floated up for a little bit, where Mario can't do that. So because of his float ability, I was able to collect the coins so much easier. Anyways, that concludes this episode of Digital Ramblings. If you like it, please hit the like button. Thank you.